All right, today we're going to dive into something that's, well, it's absolutely key if you want to understand modern Iran. We're talking about Secret Defense Week. And trust me, this is way more than just a date on a calendar. It's like a living memory, something that's really woven into the very fabric of the nation.
So the big question right off the bat is, what is Iran's Sacred Defense Week? What's it all about?
Okay, so on the surface, it's pretty straightforward. It's a week-long event, kicks off every year on September 22nd, and its whole purpose is to commemorate the Iran-Iraq War from the 1980s. We're talking about a massive, 8-year-long conflict that, completely shaped the country's collective memory.
But here's the thing. It's so much more than just looking back. Its function is way broader. The week serves as a framework to explain the nation's resistance against what it viewed as foreign aggression. It's all about connecting those sacrifices from the past to the national values of today. And it's not just some official top-down affair. Civil society is deeply involved. Universities, the media, individual families, they all participate, turning the whole week into this massive, nationwide public conversation.
So to really get why this week is so important, we've got to go back. We have to understand the war it commemorates, because the roots of this whole thing, they run deep, right into one of the longest and most brutal conflicts of the entire 20th century.
So the setup was tense, border disputes were simmering, and then, in a pretty dramatic move, Saddam Hussein just tears up a major treaty on camera. Then on September 22nd, 1980, Iraq launched this huge invasion. They were expecting a quick win, but instead, it just devolved into a grinding 8-year war of attrition that completely reshaped both countries. It wasn't until 1988 that a UN-brokered ceasefire finally put a stop to the fighting.
And this, right here, is the crucial point. The end of the war wasn't the end of the story, not even close. It was actually the beginning of a whole new phase, a very deliberate, long-term national project of memory building. And a huge part of that memory-building project really comes down to two very, very carefully chosen words. The framing is everything here. Think about it. They could have called it the Week of War, right? But that implies aggression, adventurism. Instead, they chose Sacred Defense. It might seem like a small change, but the implications are massive. Defense immediately frames the conflict as a response to an invasion, not an act of aggression. And then, adding the word sacred, well, that links the whole thing to core values like self-sacrifice, devotion, and protecting your homeland. This choice of words, as our source material puts it, is really a key to unlocking a whole semantic universe. It's a world where things like politics, culture, religion, and ethics, they aren't separate boxes. They're all deeply interwoven, all connected through this shared language of remembrance. And by framing it this way, the memory of a really devastating war gets transformed into something else entirely. It becomes what you could call valuable cultural capital. It's a source of shared identity, shared values, and lessons that stay relevant and functional long, long after the war itself is over. Okay, so we get the why behind the name, but how does this policy of memory actually work in practice? I mean, what does the week actually look like for people on the ground?
Well, it's a multi-layered thing. It usually kicks off with military parades, which are meant to show defensive readiness and honor the military. But then it quickly moves into educational events, things like photo exhibits, book presentations, and academic conferences. A huge emphasis is put on honoring the families of martyrs and veterans through these very local, very grassroots ceremonies. And then the media just blankets everything. Special documentaries, films, interviews, the broadcast all over the country.
And the goal of all this is really clear. It's to transform the whole commemoration from just some stiff, formal ceremony into a dynamic, nationwide learning experience. It's especially designed to engage younger generations, the ones who have no direct memory of the conflict at all.
And that learning experience isn't just limited to official events. The memory of the war is kept alive and explored through a really vibrant culture of art, museums, and especially cinema.
A key part of this whole modern approach is the role of the museum, not as some dusty old archive, but as an active, engaging storyteller. Yeah, the Sacred Defense Museums are specifically designed to be immersive. They use multimedia, historical reconstructions, and maybe most importantly, oral testimonies to create a real emotional experience. They're trying to be a bridge, connecting a cold, historical document with a powerful human story. And right alongside the museums, the camera, both for photos and for film, plays this absolutely crucial role of a witness. Think about it. The huge visual archives from the war, all the photos, the personal memoirs, they aren't just sitting in a box somewhere. They're treated as raw material.
constantly being used to create new books, new exhibitions, new documentaries that retell and re-examine the story of the conflict for each new generation.
And this brings us to one of the most significant cultural results of the war, a really unique and influential genre of Iranian film.
It's known as the cinema of sacred defense, and it's this lasting artistic movement that's produced tons of films, from gritty frontline documentaries to really powerful post-war dramas. These movies don't just show you battles, they dive deep into the human side of it all, the fear, the hope, the loss, and the profound meaning of sacrifice.
So, if there's one big idea to take away from all this, it's this. Sacred Defense Week isn't just a single event, it's a comprehensive policy of memory. It uses a whole toolkit from military parades and educational programs to immersive museums and powerful cinema, all to share, interpret, and pass down a foundational national experience. And you know, in the end, this whole week brings up a pretty universal question that really every country has to face. How does the story a nation tells about its most difficult times define not just who they are today, but who they're going to become tomorrow? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us.